Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Life List, a birding podcast. I am George Armistead here with my co-host, Molly Brown. Molly, where are you at right now?
I'm at the home front, and we were just talking. The rain's letting up after what a lot of folks in the East have felt. So we're recording this, and then we're getting outside.
Nice. Yeah, I'm antsy as well. It's been wet. We needed the rain. We got the rain, ready to get back outside. So, yeah. Well, I think we should dive in here. We only got an hour, and we have a very special guest, our good friend, Surya Ramachandran. And Surya hails from Chennai in the south of India. He's a good friend. We've done multiple trips together in India, including our scout trip to Assam for the Safari Assam trip we just did. He is an extremely well-known guide, having guided all over India and well beyond. He's done many snow-leopard trips, many trips looking for tigers and birds. He's the author of a couple books on wildlife in India and another one that is forthcoming. Surya, welcome to the show today. It is great to have you with us.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Molly. Thanks for having me along for this. I'm very excited, looking forward to the conversation. Yes, and right now, as you said, I am from Chennai. I'm in Chennai right now. Not the best of places to be in if you're into wildlife, but it's a good place to get work done.
Yeah, and you're in the throes of it right now, yeah?
Yeah. Right in the heart of the city. Just doing a lot of writing at the moment. I need a lot of internet, which it doesn't really sit well when you're out in the boondocks. So it's going to be a couple of months of this before I head back to where I want to be.
Nice. Well, Surya, you have two books that you have done already. One, a photographic field guide to the wildlife of central India. Another, which is the photographic field guide to the wildlife of southern India. So you have central and southern. What are you working on at the moment?
Well, when we started writing our first book, which is a Central India book, me and the co-author, David, we used to work in Central India. And we decided to we worked in a park where we didn't see much large wildlife for the first few years. It was all about walking and canoeing. So we wanted to put together all that information, which we collected about frogs, dragonflies, butterflies, birds, and of course, mammals, including the secretive ones like rodents and bats that people don't talk about much because it's all like safari in that place. So when we put that together, we realized it came out well and it was well received. So we wanted to do one for back home, which is southern India. There was never a plan to make it a series. There was never a plan to write more. We were just like goofing around because we had some spare time between safaris. But now, yes, like you rightly said, we are working on completing the series for as much of India as possible. So right now we're writing one on the deserts, which is going to be Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra. So a little bit of the Deccan thorn scrub, going into the tropical desert savanna and into the arid country, a little bit of the Rocky Mountains of the Aravallis, some salt pans, some coastline. And interestingly, in the middle of all this, there is a little bit of rainforest and laterite plateaus where there is like amphibians and night frogs and trogons and whatnot. So it's going to be like, so we're actually thinking of color coding the species in the book to show where they belong. Otherwise, it's very confusing, including king-cobras. So
king-cobras.
Yeah.
Still one of my most wanted. I'm a little salty. We missed that one in Kaziranga by minutes. Just minutes.
It's the only reason we're going back.
That's right.
We'll try to keep that one in place this time.
Yeah.
Forget the birds.
That's right. Yeah, big snake. Yeah, well, I'm excited to see this next book, and I know you have even other book projects that you're working on apart from this one, or at least that you plan to work on down the line. But you're in Chennai right now, but typically you live not too far from Chennai at a place that has a lot of wildlife, right?
Yes, probably the best wildlife holiday for me is to just go back home, for sure. I mean, and also more than anything, it's also great when you can identify individuals, like individual birds, individual cats, individual elephants. You get to know it's not just about seeing cats, it's about seeing your cat or your elephant or your monkey or your troop of monkeys, whatever you want to call it. Or that tree that you saw last year was like 3 feet tall and now it's 4 feet tall. So it's a different kind of feeling when you go back to your own patch. So yes, like you said, it is in southern India, but it's very different. So right now, Chennai, I don't know how many of you are familiar with southern India. Chennai is a coastal town. It is a big city right by the beach. And in fact, Chennai has one of the most unique habitats in the world. It's called the tropical dry evergreen forest, which is a very, very unique, like a sclerophyll forest kind of habitat around Chennai. But yeah, a lot of it is being broken down and changed. So I live about 10 hours from here, right in the heart of the Western Ghats, in a place called the Nilgiris. And I live at about 1,600 to 1,700 meters. That's the altitude. Like the Western Ghats as such gets only to about 2,500 to 2,600 meters. So I'm like right in the sweet spot where you have a little bit of influences from the plateau and the scrub forest below, and a little bit of influences from the shola forest above, seasonally, of course. So things move about back and forth. And yeah, so we do have some good wildlife over there, which I've spoken to you about before. But yeah, some exciting stuff. And yeah, this year there is some interesting things happening in the land. I can't wait to go back, but it'll be a few months before I do that because I have to get the writing done in Chennai at the moment.
Tell us about your leopards. Are your leopards during like the pandemic? I remember Surya telling me like that you had basically a pair of leopards, a black one and a non-black one, typical rosetted one. They were breeding. They had young. The photos were ridiculous. The video was twice as ridiculous.
Yes.
Just tell people a little bit about that experience.
Well, COVID was a very interesting time for us because as guides, as all of us do, George, Molly, myself, all of us, we are always on the trot all the time. We are seeing exciting wildlife, but we're never in like one place to slow down and look at things properly. So COVID, as horrible as it was, because we had this piece of land, we could go back there, and I actually lived there for like a year. In fact, that's the only time I've stayed put for a year in one place. And the most amazing thing was when we were at the land one of the days, we knew there were black leopards around. We knew there were leopards around, but we just used to like see them like once in a while as we were driving in or driving out. But then there was this one particular female. We knew she had mated with a large male black leopard, like fully melanistic leopard. And she chose this patch, which is just across from our house, where she gave birth, interestingly, to 4 cubs, out of which 2 were rosetted normal leopards and 2 were melanistic or black leopards. So there were 2 males were black leopards, and there was 1 male rosetted leopard and 1 tiny female rosetted leopard as a cub. So at any given point, we would be seeing 5 leopards every morning and evening hanging about in the same patch. Of course, she would go in and out to hunt, but the cubs were always there. And after like 3-4 months, they were out playing amongst the tea bushes, amongst the rocks. So it was very, very interesting to watch them because you don't get to see a leopard family that unless you're like in the Mara or the Serengeti and you're a guide who's there like
every day,
driving day in and day out. You don't get to see leopards like that. So we just put out our scopes, sometimes with the tea, sometimes with beer, and we used to just watch the family. And sometimes, interestingly, the male used to visit because unlike the other big cats, male leopards participate more in the rearing of young ones. They actually hang about more closer to the families. At least that's what I've seen in India. I'm not sure that's like a thing, but I've seen that quite often in India. So the big black leopard used to come hang about in the same hill, and the female used to be there and the 4 cubs. So it's sometimes you get to see like 6 leopards, out of which 3 are black and 3 are normal. And we have some great memories from that time. Yeah, it's quite incredible. And she's still there, and she's given birth to cubs again. And this time is just 3, sadly, just 3. Out of which 2 are black and 1 is a normal rosetted leopard. Yeah, so she's doing well.
I'll say.
Yeah, we talk about our backyards and our patches a lot on this podcast, but it's never been big cats that are visiting our spaces. And
someday,
this is
Molly,
someday.
You know, the truth of the matter is, as interesting as this seems, you have to realize that all of this is happening only because the Nilgiris and the Western Ghats as a habitat was converted to plantation many, many years ago. So there's a lot of wildlife, but there's no forest in most of the patches. So some leopards and some straggling tigers, some elephants are moving through, finding these nooks, these valleys, these river valleys where there's forest. So they're hanging about there. And of course, they're coming out and feeding on cattle, on dogs, on goats. Of course, occasionally they feed on the deer, they feed on the monkeys. So it's a very interesting dynamic that's playing out there. As exciting as it is to see a leopard family thrive, we know that she's hunting dogs, like someone's pets or even a stray dog. That's what she's feeding on primarily.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting if you actually come down here to see. It's not about the wildlife, but the setting that you see the whole thing happening in. So as much as my backyard is a wilderness, it is not under government purview a forest, which is why it is my backyard.
Mm-hmm. And this is the original pair that you were watching was the cover of your Southern Guide, right?
No, those were the parents of the current pair, or like parents of one of the two. So I don't know if I can show this. So
send us an image of it and we'll post it.
Do that. This is the male and this is the female, but now it's the other way around. The male is black and the female is.
Okay, before we started recording this, I was like, Jimmy, what do you call a leopard that's not black? I was like, are they yellow? Are they blonde? But you answered that.
Rosetted, right? The George
rosetted leopard.
I just followed George's lead, so he said.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to say.
But I heard some very interesting things from Africa about erythristic leopards, and they're casually calling them pink panthers because they're just red.
Are they like what kind of? Have you seen pictures of these?
Yes, I've seen some pictures from India.
Are they like reddish brown, or are they actually like?
They actually are like kind of pink. They're like reddish pink.
Oh my God.
And the rosettes are very beige, so I've seen that. And then apparently there's one in northern Kenya, which is like a xanthocroistic, which is like yellow.
Yeah.
So I've seen some pictures, but I've only seen black leopards. Never. And interestingly, in Maharashtra, as of last week, very, very interesting news from the Western Ghats. I saw a picture of the first albino leopard cub.
Oof.
Wild.
Wow.
Someone's taken a picture in their phone. Yeah, like tiny cub, but albino.
You have a tremendous amount of experience with big cats in general and have spent a lot of time on foot with tigers and snow leopards and leopards. I believe you have not seen clouded leopard yet. Is that right?
Thanks for bringing that up, George. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Yes.
I just wanted to be sure for myself.
I'll tell you that.
Well, after we get one next year someplace, we'll have this conversation again. But I guess I don't know. I'm curious if there's one of the cats that you've spent a lot of time with that you like. Do you favor leopards, snow leopards, tigers? Is there one that speaks to you more than the others? I guess the reason I ask is like I find myself I can't keep my eyes off lions whenever I see lions, right? Big cats in general is just for me there's just nothing better, or any cat, actually just wild cats, period. But leopards are my favorite. And I don't know why that is, but they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious where, as someone who's spent a lot of time with a lot of cats, if you find yourself getting particularly excited about one species or not.
Well, in the Indian context, as I'd like to point out here that we have 16 species of wildcat in India. The whole of the African continent has 10. We have like 16 species in India. So it's quite an interesting pursuit once you start going after all of them. But talking about cats you get to spend time with and you can appreciate and learn and observe over extended periods of time, at least in my case. Of course, you can't ignore the tiger. I did like most of the naturalists in India. In fact, interestingly, I didn't start with tigers. I started with sloth bears and leopards. In the park I worked in, there was not much tiger viewing. Like how we used to call it, tigers used to show up for Diwali and Holi and that's it. Like twice a year. Otherwise, in fact, they actually saw a tiger on Diwali day and Holi day in one of the years. So that's all we saw. One female, she used to like walk about and that's it. But so it started out with leopards for me. And what was interesting was even the leopards were shy. It was a new park. But then there was one family which split up and these two sub-adult leopards. These two brothers got like extremely curious and used to vehicles. And we started seeing leopards quite often there. But then, of course, I moved to Kanha and spent quite a lot of time with tigers. Especially at that point, there was one guy who used to have CAT on his forehead. So that's why he became famous. There was a big male tiger. And in his forehead, it said CAT, the stripe pattern. So I spent a lot of time with him and his son, who's called Link 7 Male. But for me, the most interesting experiences with cats and the most memorable ones I've had are definitely with snow leopards in India. I have to be very honest on that because when I went up there, it was mostly researchers and local people who are mostly working in the national park areas. And I was sent up there working with a couple of villages over there, a couple of friends who I got introduced to. And it was like for me learning from scratch because I'd never been to that landscape before. It was treeless, it's just rocks, it was depressing, honestly. The food wasn't
I would say that's the most humbling landscape I've ever been to in my entire life. It was an incredibly humbling landscape.
Yeah, and it's Martian. I mean that's how it is. You go in there, there's like
Moonscape.
layers and layers of mountains. You don't understand scale. Everywhere, every other place we go to, all of us are birders, right? I mean, when you go into a landscape, we know that if you're going to look for, let's say, a chickadee, we know that at 200 meters, a chickadee is going to be so small because you can see leaves and branches. In Ladakh, you don't see anything. You stare at a mountain. How big a cat are you going to look at? How big an ibex are you going to look for? Because
Yeah.
until you subconsciously register the size of the animal in your head, your binoculars, you might be thinking you're going to see a snow leopard that's this big on the mountain, but it's probably not even going to be visible to the naked eye. So it was very interesting. It's a lot of learning, and that's one of the few times I learned straight from the local people, straight from the local trackers, the local villagers, just by conversations, just by walking with them. Started from scratch with camera traps, and then of course 3 months in, I saw not one but 6 snow leopards for the first time. A mother with 2 cubs on one side and mother with 2 cubs on the other. And I've spent about 8 years, more than any other cat in India. I've spent more time with snow leopards, so definitely a big attachment to snow leopards. But having said that, for me, the most exciting thing is going back to the land and seeing that family of leopards. For sure. I don't think I can beat that. Just to see, sometimes I end up seeing last year's litter cub roaming by himself or herself somewhere. And it's a different feeling when it's just yours.
And they recognize you also, right? Like this, they
I don't
Yeah.
know. I've changed my perfume, so I'm not sure. But yeah. But yeah, they don't know that if I come out in the veranda, or not me, or anyone comes out in our deck of our house, sometimes they can be quite close. And they know that the people in this deck are okay. So they don't like scuttle away.
That's what I remember you saying, was that they were a little bit habituated to you guys. They got used to seeing humans in this space, right?
I mean, they see humans, like they live around humans. They walk around houses at night. I mean, they're looking for chicken, they're looking for dogs. So yes, so they are more wary, not shy. I'll put it that way. But in my case, I think they're okay with the space that we watch them from. And we have also been quite careful. I mean, there were many opportunities for us to go closer, but we kind of kept the temptation at bay just to watch them with digiscoping. I mean, that's pretty cool that you can put it on your iPhone or something. So that's what we did, more or less.
Well, you've still managed some decent photos.
Yeah, quite decent. Yes. Thanks.
It's pretty cool. We had an episode where we talked about this kind of like feeling of attachment to the birds that are in your backyard with Holly Merker.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a universal feeling, no matter what it is, but
absolutely.
extra cool.
I would never look at a magpie robin when I'm on trips.
Yeah.
Like you see a magpie robin and you forget about it because you want to see like 200 more. But when come summer at home, there are a couple of these magpie robins which fight for the highest perch. So they like to go to the highest perch to sing. So it's interesting to see who gets the highest perch every morning and who gets sidetracked, who gets sidelined, including shamas, white-drum shama, magpie robin, all the songsters when they come out. So that's actually the only time we actually sit and watch them. Otherwise, when you're on trips, you're looking for like, let's say, a Khalij pheasant.
Right. You don't have time.
Yeah.
You don't have time to get a magpie robin. Yeah.
Good singing. So yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's true. You do form an attachment. I agree. Yeah.
Have you done any changes to your land? Like, are you working on any conservation projects or anything, or how's that working out?
It's still early stages, to be honest. I'm definitely
No judgment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'm the only thing I'm trying to do now is de-weeding. So what is interesting about that land is it has a natural grassland all across, and it has a river valley which is fully covered with endemic trees. The native shola species of the northern Nilgiris. It's actually, we have like Canadium, we have your Heliocarpus, and we have all the things that you kind of search for when you're outside this habitat, because the Nilgiris is so changed, right? There's eucalyptus brought in, there's wattle brought in, and there's a whole bunch of exotics that were planted into the Nilgiris. But in our land, luckily, it is good. But still, the grasslands are always the most susceptible to invasive species. So, like we get like lantana, we get
lantana is like, I remember just seeing it everywhere in some of the parks in central India. It's just like a scourge.
One interesting invasive that we have is peacocks. They're starting to move up to altitudes which they were never there.
No.
So the peacocks are coming because probably it's getting warmer, or they've figured it out that they're emptying the land of snakes. So we keep like chasing peacocks away. So we're just kind of maintaining it now, trying to understand the watershed, trying to understand the contours, trying to understand what's happening. It'll be too much for us to assume that we know what we need to do with the land already, because it's quite a big patch and it's contiguous to another 400 acres. So it's a big patch. So we don't want to change too much at the moment. But one interesting discovery, I think I did mention this to you guys before, was on one of our recent contour surveys where we're trying to understand watershed, we came across a salt lick in the land, which is not very common in rainforest to come across salt licks. And how we knew it was a salt lick was because we saw elephant tusks, which had pierced the mud wall, and the elephants were actually taking salt after making down the wall a little bit, and they were sucking in the salts from the wall. And next time we saw sambar deer there, we saw gore, we saw monkeys coming down, we saw a couple of birds. So it was very interesting to see that, and we're going to be putting up camera traps over there to see what else is out there. That is the interesting new find. And
Yeah, serious.
So cool.
Yeah, and we are obviously not disturbing that place for now, but except that I'll be going in and out to see what's happening.
Right. So we had talked about king cobras before, and this is it's like, I've got this incredible like built-in visceral fear of snakes, but also absolutely love seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see king cobras around your spot? Are you too high for where you are to see them, or?
Well, we are actually too high to see them where we are, but we do get the occasional king which is roaming around, which comes in from trucks like trucks that carry wood to the higher reaches from the lowlands. Sometimes you get king cobra rescue calls even at 2,000 meters.
In the trucks.
But that's very case specific to our area. But the truth is, king cobras have been recorded above 2,500 meters in the Himalayas. It could be a similar case where they've been moved along with trucks, but naturally they prefer to stick to the lowlands and the foothills.
I got to say, as much as I would love to see a king cobra, I really would not like to see it while I'm driving a truck inside the truck.
Well, now you know they could be anywhere. So.
They can be anywhere.
God.
And this is the time. If you want to see one, this is the time to come. They'll be like roaming large areas because the males will be looking for a mate, and the females will, once they mate, it's actually the only nest building snake in the world. They build like huge nests. You're just using their coils, they wrap up leaves, and they lay their eggs inside nests, and they stay on top of nests for like 3-4 months. So this is the time to see them.
Now I want to see them even more.
Yeah, they're very cool. They're very, very cool snakes. But we do have them a little lower down. Sometimes when you're driving around, we see them. I've been lucky enough to see them a couple of times, but not as much as I would like. They can be extremely elusive, extremely hard to see. As much as you think it's a 16-foot or 12-foot snake, it should be like obvious. They spend a lot of time not moving. It's like cats, right? They spend a lot of time not moving. And
when they do move, they move pretty quick. Yeah.
They do move quick. They actually climb well. So the most of the times you see them only with during rescue calls, especially during this time of the year when they're moving about a lot. They enter people's houses, they go into people's roofs, they enter people's backyards, and then you get a call, and that's when you can go see them.
Note that it is middle of May right now, folks. Our trips tend to be earlier in the year. Just
I'd forgotten about this though, because you help with calls for this kind of stuff, right? Is it? I don't know if that's officially or because you're like the wildlife guy.
Around our area, yes. Around our area, we do mostly like things like water snakes, sometimes like a cobra or a pit viper or something like that. King cobra is very, very rare. In fact, I have to be honest and say I've never been to a king cobra rescue myself. I've gone and witnessed it, but in our area, they're so rare that you don't see them much. But slightly further north of us, I don't know if you've heard of this place called Agumbe, which is actually a king cobra sanctuary in southern India. And there they have dedicated research teams who have satellite tagged king cobra, so they actually track them on a daily basis. Like sometimes they walk like miles together in the jungle to locate it under a log or in a hollow or something like that. So it's very, very, very interesting to see how they move once you go there.
Yeah.
That's when you can actually appreciate them. But all of our sightings are by chance, by accident, by luck, when they're basking or they're shedding skin or they're crossing a road or something like that.
Do you know, are they capable, and this might sound like a weird question, I'll explain while I'm asking, but are they capable of making any sounds? Like a friend of mine, one of my dad's good buddies, he had a job working for the Department of Game and Fish in the state of Virginia, and he would get called in when it was time to, like, if they'd busted up what they called a hot snake ring, they call them hots, like illegal trade of reptiles, and he would go in and have to get these things out of that, because he was like a herp guy. Yeah. He was like the state herp guy. And he had to go in, it was like some coke dealer that got busted or something and was trying to breed king cobras like outside of DC, Northern Virginia or something. This is like decades ago. And he had to go in there and get this thing out. And he told this crazy story about trying to get these things out. And he took his biggest snake hook in, ended up, it was like, it was a whole thing. But he said that at one point he got a hold of one and he was trying to kind of get it into like a mid-sized trash can so he could tape it up and then move it on. And he said that it kind of growled at him a little bit.
Yeah. It's more than a growl. It feels like a pressure cooker. I don't know. In India, it's a very common thing, like a rice cooker, which blows a whistle. It's like really loud. It's not like a roar. It's not like a growl, but it's very loud, and you kind of actually feel it. You feel it. It's more like a hiss, but along with the hiss comes like a few other layers. Like I actually have a video of one doing that. The first time we saw king-cobra on a walk. We got very excited, as I leave out the details, but yes, we did see it quite well, and the snake was not okay with that. I mean, this is a good 12 and a half, 13-foot snake.
Wow.
And we heard the sound. It's something else. But having said that, they're very, very docile, George.
Right. They're not an aggressive snake, yeah.
They're not at all an aggressive snake. They really can, when they take the hood, they can go up to like 4 feet sometimes.
Right, which would get your attention.
Yes, but I've handled them once or twice, and they're quite docile. They're actually quite easy to do rescues with if you know what you're doing. If you don't want to showboat, most of the accidents are when people showboat, like in Thailand or even some chaps in Kerala, they showboat.
I know a guy in the States, same thing.
And this and that. But if you actually just show them a dark pipe, they go in and then you can bag them. It's like so simple. It's a very docile snake, for sure. In fact, there's probably one official recorded human death from a king-cobra in India.
Wow.
Out of the 50,000 odd that happens every year from other venomous snakes, there's probably just one official record that I know of. It could be a few more, but that I know of.
But it's low. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very low,
Yeah. Hey friends, this is George Armistead with Life List, a birding podcast, and I am not only excited about the northern rough-winged swallow I just got on my yard list here, but also excited to talk about Patreon. We've got a newly revamped Patreon for you guys, and if you want more Life List in your life, you can become a Timberdoodle, which is a supporting member of the podcast. You can become a Boom Chachalaka, and also get an extra 12 bonus episodes annually, plus some bloopers behind the scenes. Or you can become among our gadflies and have even more access to us, plus the other stuff we already mentioned. So I really hope you'll go and check out our Patreon. It helps us do what we do here. We've been doing it for a couple years now. We're hoping to do it long into the future, and with your help, we can do that. So thanks for listening, and hope we'll have you on as a Patreon member as well. Thanks, everybody. Well, I do hope that we have a chance on our trip next year, which we should talk about a little bit. I guess it was off my radar. I kind of knew that they were generally in the area, but we're going along and I think you were like, yeah, that's up near the spot where the king-cobra is sometimes. And I was like, what? And I was like, we don't have a chance this time of year. And you were like, well, this is right about the time of year they start to emerge, because this was January. I imagine in March we actually have a better chance when we go back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe about the same. Yeah.
It really comes down to where the king-cobra chooses to roost for the winter.
Okay.
If it's near a safari track, and especially in Kaziranga or Manas, if there's a king-cobra roosting next to a safari track, every day at between 9 and 10 in the morning, we have to spend time there as the king-cobra comes out to bask. It'll probably need about half an hour of sunlight or 1 hour of sunlight before the king-cobra goes back down into the hole. So that's it.
So still need luck.
There's no logical reason to finding king-cobras in the winter. This is
right.
Just that. You find a roost, then you're good. You're golden.
Right. But you still have to spend time, and so there's, even when you know where they are, you got to be there when they emerge and actually have the time to spend hoping that they emerge, and so there's some judgment calls.
But it's worth it, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Well, that is one. That would be good.
I mean, you get out there and there's a lot of stuff that's worth it. That's the hard part.
The lowlands of Assam, which is where we're going, they're very interesting, especially Kaziranga. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Kaziranga. It is one of the strongholds of the rhino, which is what everyone knows of it as. But it's actually
that's where we're going on this trip. It's the first big national park we go to. One of the most famous in India is Kaziranga.
It kind of feels like you're like the Great African Plains when you're in Kaziranga, just by the sheer numbers that you see. And of course, everyone just goes there to see the rhino, of course. But beyond that, you have gibbons, you have like water buffalo, you have elephants, like one of the best. We had some fantastic views of elephants, if you remember last year, especially when they came up to the swamp inside the forest. That was quite something. I remember that very clearly. We had some good tuskers.
Yeah.
And of course, it is also, people forget, it's a tiger reserve and it has one of the highest densities of tigers in the world. In fact, talking about aberrations, talking about black leopards and albino leopards and pink panthers, Kaziranga has right now about 3 tigers, which are what they're calling tabby tigers, like golden tigers. So I don't know what tabby means, but I just know that people are calling them tabby tigers. They're very pale with like slightly off darker than the skin color stripes. So that's something that's happening in Kaziranga at the moment. And of course, you get the odd King-cobra, the odd Burmese python, otters. It's a very, very interesting place.
And not to mention there's some birds there too.
Yeah, some birds, yeah. About 600, I think, is the official checklist of Kaziranga.
It's high. Yeah.
Because you have the hill slopes on one side. What is interesting about Kaziranga is it's the swamp. It's a terai. Are you familiar with the word terai, right? You are, yes, of course.
I am, but I'm not
I wasn't until I studied for this trip. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting habitat worth describing to folks, yeah.
Yeah, it's what is interesting about Terai is you have all these Himalayan streams coming down these beautiful valleys, these rocky channels, they come down. And when they hit the plains, they suddenly slow down because they are like in this vast basin. So they become wide, they form oxbow lakes, they slow down, they form like marshes, swamps. What earlier was infamously known as the malaria belt, that's what it is, but not anymore, of course. We've come a long way. So this swampy forest, which is, of course, right now the protagonist in this forest is the Brahmaputra River, which is one of the largest rivers in Asia. This swampy grassland forest surrounded by low forested hillocks is what Kaziranga is. And this swamp is home to the rhinos, the tigers, about 4 species of hornbills. We have like red-headed trogons. We have about 8 species of woodpecker, couple of eagles, a lot of grassland specialties, which we actually bring, including the one we saw at a distance last time, the Bengal florican, which I hope we'll have better views of in March as compared to January, because
March is a better time for them, right? To be displaying and.
Yeah, and also they burn the grasses by then. So we get to see them really well in March because they burn the grasslands every year in all these grassland parks because they want the rhinos to have fresh grass when they're giving birth to young ones. And more than anything, they don't want them to leave the park because earlier days, I guess rhinos used to walk around to other places when in the peak summer, but they want to keep the rhinos in the park. So it's kind of like an artificial management thing, but that kind of helps us see floricans.
Yeah,
I guess.
And another Terai special is the Finns weaver, right? That which is a super endangered bird. I don't really understand exactly why it is so endangered. I remember looking it up. I guess it's because of the Terai habitat that it needs is pretty restricted, yeah?
No, I would actually say it's because of the burning. So what is necessarily productive for the rhino? Because most of our management practices are focused on the large charismatic wildlife. So if you look at the pygmy hog, or you can look at the Bengal florican, you look at the Finns weaver, you look at the slender-billed babbler, you look at the Indian grassbird, you can take any of these guys. The reality is they need the tall grasses. The rhinos need short, fresh grass. Actually, rhinos don't need short, fresh grass, but it's good for them if they have it. So it's a bit of both. So when you have this constant burning, they kind of keep moving, and it's not very scientific in how they do it because they just burn and they know it's going to like be put out anyways by the wind at some point because they're going to run out of combustible material. So there's no like definitive areas where they don't burn or scientifically identified. So yeah, so I think that is the Finns weaver and all the other characters which you mentioned just now are all affected because of the burning. And the burning happens in March, which is round about the time they're nesting. So it's interesting that there is a direct correlation.
Yeah, because it's an endangered species where and it's basically they hide the data in eBird, which usually is an indication that is really a scarce, rare bird. We were lucky to see a couple flocks on the trip that we did earlier this year, and hopefully we'll have good chances, I know, to see them next year as well.
We should. We actually be there during the nesting time, actually in March, coming in 2026, because it's a later time of the year. We should be able to, they should be a little bit more localized. And in fact, they should have their brighter yellow breeding colors, which we did see in January. So that's quite something to look forward to.
Yeah. was really interesting to me when we were there how much you could see these like forces of conservation and tourism at work in the national parks, because this is one of 3 that we go to. But as you said, it's for our tour, I mean, but it's really well known, but it's still out of the way. It's not crowded by any means. I mean, we were gathered at a few points where there were some interesting things, but we spent plenty of time where it was kind of, we had 3 safari vehicles and we were all just parked and talking to each other across the vehicles and kind of hanging out by ourselves. And I mean, clearly rhinos are the main draw, but I guess in the same way you have parks that are really dedicated to tigers, right? I don't know. It was just fascinating to see that, because particularly when we were looking for all those species that you were just mentioning that are restricted to those taller grasslands, they were pretty isolated, and we were really seeking that out.
So, well, we are not normal, right? None of us are normal. We are all birders. So we won't be in the places where most of the others are watching like rhinos dancing about. We're going to see a few rhinos, and then we're going to go looking for things like Finn's weaver, or they'll use a king-cobra or something. So we go to areas of the park which people usually don't go to. We look, like, remember, we went to a particular area of the park just to look for the eastern spot-billed duck. If you remember that, we just went like straight to one spot to see that. Driving past elephants, driving past rhinos, we went and saw that, and then we made it back slowly to see the rest of the stuff. So yes, so we do go to areas of the park which others don't generally go to on our trips, like we did the last time. But yes, Kaziranga, having said that, does get a lot of attention. It actually has benefited a lot from good quality tourism, including the communities outside. So there is good footfall, but most of it is focused on the rhinos. So people just go to the central zone where you get to see good amount of rhinos, and they do the loop, and they're quite happy with that. But we actually spent time. In fact, we spent time, remember, even outside the park, in the hills around, looking for things like blue-naped pitta and pale-headed woodpecker and things like that. Yeah, so there's a lot to do in that landscape. There are nooks and corners still, and they will be there even next year, that you can be by yourself in the wilderness, for sure.
It's cool to spend some time outside of the parks too.
Yeah.
As a tourist who's visiting that part of the world for maybe the only time in your life.
For sure.
We saw just a lot of different things, just driving through different towns. That was really cool.
Yeah, the driving, there's a couple long drives. What's nice is this trip we basically spend time right around and in 3 main sites, 3 national parks. Within those areas, I think 5 of the top 10 eBird hotspots we'll be visiting and spending time at. But yeah, like along the drive, you see a lot, like culturally, and that part is interesting. But then, one of the most memorable things on our trip was birding around that very first morning outside of Kaziranga, the tea plantation. And not necessarily because the tea plantation is particularly good bird habitat, although it is for a few things, right, that we wanted to see. It's just such a completely different landscape than anything we would ever see here in North America. So it was really interesting to do that. And of course, we end up finding Angela spots the blue and white flycatcher, which, chaos ensued thereafter with quite the twitch.
The first record, yeah.
And that was super memorable. But there was even other stuff around. That was just like, there were some of my favorite pictures of our group from the trip were in that tea plantation, which is, a heavily managed landscape that's been going on for decades, if not centuries.
Yes, centuries for sure. Lowland Assam tea, definitely centuries. I remember, I think that morning we also got the white-browed piglet. Very, very good views of the piglet.
That's right.
We heard the pitta. But
that's what I remember.
Yeah. So there's a good morning for sure.
And flocks of minivets.
Lots of minivets, yes, lots of minivets. The one good thing about Kaziranga is that the park, because it's not focused entirely on tigers, they open at like 7:30 in the morning. So you have a good chunk of the morning to do like go after hardcore species. Now, in fact, George, I want to tell you, come March this year, they've opened Panbari, which is another eBird hotspot. I think all of you should check it out. Panbari, which is another zone of Kaziranga. They allow only 4 vehicles, and it's like a birding zone, essentially.
Wow.
So you go in and look for pale-eared broadbill. You look for your Jordan's bazars, black bazars. You look for greenbill mulcoha. So it's basically a forest birding habitat. So what we look for in Manas, but a small sample space of that is now there in Kaziranga. In fact, I did that with a couple of my friends when we went birding in April, and it was very, very interesting. Very interesting spot.
Anytime you have a chance at seeing anything called a baza, I feel like you're someplace cool. Like
Definitely.
black baza is one of the craziest, coolest looking raptors,
Yeah.
I think, in the world, really. And they're migratory to some degree. I know there's some places in Thailand where you can go and actually see pretty good black baza migration, which would be something that I still have not connected with Jordan's baza. So hopefully that'll be one that maybe we get a view of next year.
Well, you're just casually sliding Malkoas and Broadbills into that list too. I mean, that sounds pretty sweet.
It is a very, very good spot. I mean, no jokes. I mean, you also hear peacock pheasant over there. You hear white-cheeked partridge over there. So you get a whole... Remember, we also heard white-cheeked partridge, if you remember, while we were looking for the pitta.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting space because, like I said, most of the places we do safari in Kaziranga is the swamp side. So this is on the other side. This is on the foothills where there's forest, no swamp. So it's very, very, very interesting, very different habitat as compared to the rest.
As you're reminding us of the partridge, wasn't that the same time we knew that we were on, there was a leopard around as we were hiking around looking for the pitta, and we could tell it was close because the monkeys were all alarm calling.
Yeah.
We couldn't see where it was, but we knew it was nearby.
Yeah, very loud. And I think we found the trail as well with the scat marks and the scrape marks. And
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's nice. That's one nice thing too about the pre-park birding is you actually can get out on foot a bit and walk a little bit. Compared to a lot of safari trips, there's not a lot of time on foot because of the big animals, but we actually can usually squeeze a little bit of walking in during the day. I thought I might just read for folks a little bit from our trip report highlight just and kind of jog our memories, but also give folks a sense of kind of what we saw. We had 6 species of storks, 6 species of drongos, 13 species of doves, 11 woodpeckers, and there's actually a lot more woodpeckers we could have connected with even, and a lot of raptors and waterfowl overall. Pied harrier and collared falconet were the 2 birds that garnered the most votes for the favorite birds of the trip, but we also had great views of Pallas's fish eagle, which is same genus as bald eagle and a critically endangered bird also. One of our main goals, I think, is as clear on the tour page, is trying to spend time with the hargila, the bone swallower, the greater adjutant, which is another critically endangered bird, and one we see we get really good views of around Kaziranga. So that was, and I think there's only about 1,500 of those remaining, and this whole Brahmaputra Valley is one of their big strongholds. Surya early mentioned the critically endangered Bengal florican, which for folks that may not know it, it's sort of a small, medium-sized bustard that does a spectacular display, which we might have a chance to see in March. That is the time that they often are displaying. There's also chances for slender-billed vulture, which is another endangered species. There's a couple endangered vultures. We did connect with ibisbill, and while we actually failed to see white-winged duck on this trip because of some park management issues, we do have a chance at that next year, hopefully. We did hear them, and Jeff actually made a recording of the sound. I think it's like the 7th recording in eBird of white-winged duck. That was pretty special to hear that bird. Is probably actually much rarer than to see it. We mentioned the Finn's weaver, the blue and white flycatcher, and a lot of other common birds that we see just all over the place included blue-throated barbet, Indo-Chinese roller, white-throated kingfishers, crested serpent eagles, chestnut-tailed starlings, Siberian stone chats, many others. The mammals, a lot of mammals. We did actually get to see Ganges river dolphin, Indian flying foxes, huge bat, really huge bats, smooth-coated otters. Remember, we had those running around kind of near some elephants. We had tiger and leopard. A couple folks got to see black leopard there. I think that was in Manas. Gore, which is the crazy bison looking like it's the largest wild bovid in the world. We saw tons of Asian buffalo, elephants, lots of rhinos. A handful of different monkeys. So a lot of stuff. Yeah, gibbons being a really special one. Hulak gibbons. Yeah.
Very cool. And I think we got lucky with the black leopard for sure, one of the vehicles. But Manas is interesting because we traverse actually from east to west through Assam. So we start off in Kaziranga, as we do, which is what we've been discussing. But when you go west, you actually move towards the foothills of Bhutan when you're in Manas. So that is a very, very different habitat because you've gone past the area of the swamp, but you're actually in the area where the rivers come out of the mountains, but they still haven't formed the swamp. So Manas has a good mix of that, which is why you get different species of hornbills, including like rufous necked and wreathed hornbills. Over there, you also get like sultan tits, which we saw. We saw the pale-load broadbill, and you also see like a lot of altitudinal migrants in Manas, which you don't see in Kaziranga because Kaziranga doesn't have a direct forest connect with the Himalayas in certain areas. But Manas is one contiguous forest with the high altitude habitats of Bhutan. So when things move down for the winters, you get to see more in Manas in terms of bird species as compared to Kaziranga or maybe even Nameri, for sure.
I think Manas was a bit of a surprise to folks how much they really loved that. I think Molly, wasn't that your favorite spot pretty much?
Well, Manas was great.
Yeah.
It was a lot of, that was the spot where I was like, we could spend a lot more time here.
Yeah.
And I felt that pull
We
the
forgot to
most.
mention the golden langurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the golden
Specifically
langurs.
to see them in that place with the community conservation initiative that goes on over there. I think
Mhm.
that is very special because they are critically endangered, small population in Bhutan and small population in Western Assam, and that's pretty much it. You don't see them anywhere else.
Yeah. Geese, golden langur.
Yes.
Mhm.
Such a great name for an animal. It's an incredibly beautiful monkey as well. It'd be a really fun thing for folks to see.
Yeah. As you were reading over that list of the birds, the two things that are really sticking out to me now. One is, we talked about bosses a little bit, but just raptors in general, the views that you get of raptors, and some of them you're going to get cell phone video of if you want it. Like, it's not like, I don't know, a lot of the new world forested birding that I do, where you might get some cool raptors and they might be shooting over through the trees and you're looking at a silhouette and you see them for 15 seconds, maybe, and then that's it. These are spectacular views of really high numbers and species diversity, and that always impresses me when I'm over that way.
Good raptor trip.
It is.
Really is.
And then just also I was picturing like the shapes and colors of birds as you're naming all these species, and it is so diverse. Just the range of very different looking birds that you get is really, really cool in this mix. And it changes each place you go as well.
Talking about raptors, Molly, what is interesting is along the Himalayas, there's a very interesting east-west migration of raptors that happens from the northern steppe, from Southeast Asia or South Asia like Thailand and Burma. So there's a east-west migration that happens along the Brahmaputra and the Ganges river systems of raptors. So they actually pass through, including things like white-tailed eagle, which we saw in Kaziranga. You cannot imagine seeing them in that kind of habitat anywhere else. Otherwise, you see them in like sometimes in Kashmir, sometimes in Rajasthan, and then they move back up to the northern latitudes. But what is interesting is this east-west migration that happens just on the southern side of the Himalayas, and that is the reason why we get so many interesting raptor species in these habitats. Apart from the fact that they have so much to eat because it's a swamp, you have like fish, turtles, you have rodents, you have other small birds. So there's good prey base there, so it becomes like a good stopover point for a lot of the raptors. Kaziranga.
So I just counted 23 species of raptors. That does not include things like owls and falcons. That's what we had.
Yeah. We did quite well for a scouting trip. I'm sure we're going to be spending
we
a
did.
little bit more time in each of the spots this coming March. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll do better than what we did in January. In fact, we lost out one entire day during our scouting trip, if you remember, because of the white morning, the misty white morning, the morning.
Yes.
Yeah. So
A lot of fog there. Yeah.
it was like a scene from a Vikings movie or something, right? So
That's right.
March should be a better time for sure for us to explore those areas.
Nice. Yeah. Getting the blood flowing. Excited to get back there.
I liked how you casually mentioned tiger and leopard. I mean, the birding trip to Assam, we saw a tiger walking through the grassland. I think some of the best tiger pictures I've seen were taken by the guests. I think by
Jason.
John and Jason. They got
Yeah,
some
Josh and Jason
incredible,
both got really
pictures
good
of
tiger
tigers.
shots. Yeah.
Yeah, that is quite fantastic. I think we were watching swamp francolins when this big female walked out through the grasslands towards us.
Yeah. I was like excuse me, I was excited for Jason, but also slightly furious at him because he got such beautiful photos. I was like sitting right next to him for the tiger, and I was like, oh.
Well, you need to get your kit up here first.
I know.
I love doing it that way though, because like you go into the trip knowing there are going to be some pretty spectacular moments, but you don't know what they're going to be or when they're going to be. You're just birding for the most part and seeing what comes along. It's a really cool surprise element.
Very cool. Yes. Yeah, and it was actually a surprise element for that day for us.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it was like last light, and you were just like figuring out what.
You were confident. I remember you were confident that we would get a tiger. I feel like you wanted to get it right then, and you thought we would, but you weren't like 100% sure. But I remember you were confident, and that because like right after it was done, you looked over at me and you were like, "Told you we'd get a tiger."
I'm glad it worked out that way. It could have gone any other way for sure. So, but I'm glad. But Kaziranga is doing well. For tigers wise, it's definitely doing well. Hopefully, when you go in March, that's an added thing because the grasses would have been burnt, so the tiger viewing is better. It's warmer, so tigers are more visible. So yes, I do predict everything going good in March as well. But let's see.
Yeah, because it's not as predictable a thing at Kaziranga as some other places, there is the post-tour option for folks that want to go specifically looking to try to see tigers in Kanha, which is one of the most beautiful national parks in India, and definitely recommend folks for that. And of course, there's the pre-trip for Taj Mahal, among other things.
We are doing Bharatpur and Chambal again on the pre-trip.
Yes, yep. I think Molly's going to do that certainly.
Fantastic.
Bharatpur for the photographers and people that like wetlands. That is pretty tough to beat.
And
that's
Chambal as
gonna
well.
be
Chambal, I think, remember we got those massive male gharials the last time we went.
Yes.
Yeah, like huge.
I feel like a lot of folks don't know what gharial even is. Like, it looks prehistoric, I think is a really serious understatement. It really looks like something out of your dinosaur kids books.
Yeah,
but it's a huge, long crocodilian for folks that don't know it, that they specialize in eating pretty big fish. And so they have this really long, narrow snout and but they get huge. They get like 20 feet long sometimes.
They do. And of course, they're also getting wiped out of most of their range because of they're losing the sandy riverbanks, which they need to nest in because of a lot of illegal sand mining and damming of rivers. But Chambal, where Molly will be going on the pre-trip, is probably the best place to see them, along with the Ganges dolphins and Indian skimmer and black-bellied
tern sometimes.
Yes, sandlarks. You get to see Bonelli's eagles. A couple of things that you don't get to see in other parts of the tour. Not necessarily endemics, but it is a good area to cover those species. Orphean warbler, if you remember that, things like that you can get in.
It's a cursed river, which, and I like to say it's cursed with good birds,
The only reason it has so much wildlife is because it's cursed. Otherwise, there'll be like big towns, cities, temples all around. So Chambal is a cursed river. So thank God for that. So we get to see a whole bunch of things over there. People don't that's true. That's why it's surrounded by ghost towns. People don't live there.
Yeah.
It did go through a rough patch in the 80s and 90s, not 90s, 70s and 80s. And so the region is quite wild even now. In fact, we're planning to make a tiger reserve quite close to where we go for the boat ride, and by relocating tigers from Ranthambore to the ravine landscape of the Chambal area.
That was another thing I remember you talking about, Surya, when we were there last time, was that the ravines there, that whole ravine system is sort of like the Wild West for Americans, like a Wild Western United States. There was a period of time where there was like a lot of sort of banditry and like, just kind of Wild West, like, atmosphere, right? Where there's...
It was a lawless land for the longest time. I still remember as a child, I used to take a train from Delhi, and there was a train used to pass through these areas. And we'd have like armed guard, and they'll put like these metal shutters to seal us off as we go through this Chambal ravine. So that's my memory. And after that, I've been going there for birding, if you can imagine that.
Yeah, it's quite a transition.
It's quite a transition for sure. But what is interesting, it's one of the largest ravine systems in the world. So the river has cut and cut and cut these kind of like these mud walls across sometimes 50 kilometers, like maybe like 20, 30 miles away from the river, because the river has also shifted. And what is interesting, in some areas, the neighboring river, the Jamuna, which is a holy river, so not much wildlife, but it also has its own ravine. So sometimes the ravine ecosystem can go up to 100, 150 kilometers wide. and it's like a maze. Which the bandits knew how to navigate. That's why the whole area was lawless for the longest time. But now it is one of the last strongholds of the caracal in India. It is one of the strongholds of hyenas, leopards, and now of course tigers are coming back into the landscape when they are overflowing from Ranthambore. They're walking into the ravine landscape. So I think it's going back to what it used to be. But again, it really comes down to how they manage the wildlife there and how they create a heaven.
Corridors and
Yeah.
It's crazy to think we were going to maybe get into some, we're running down on our time here, but we were going to talk about tiger conservation. Maybe we'll save that for another time, but it is crazy to think. I think as recently as like the early 90s, we were talking about tiger numbers that was like below 1,000 animals or something, like 700 or 800 tigers. And now there's thousands, right?
Yeah, well, it is a country with 1.3 billion people, George. So I'm not sure growing numbers is a great thing. But
Yeah.
like you said, we'll discuss that another day.
Yeah.
I think they've always got the count right, wrong in the earlier years. Now they're just getting more accurate. I think that's what it is more than anything, because they have better systems, better manpower, better technology to count tigers and accurately identify individuals. So they're able to do it better. But having said that, I don't know whether we have the space unless we really figure out what to do with all these tigers. Otherwise, because they're just coming into towns and to like places like my backyard, tea gardens. So the tigers are unaccounted for all across the country outside forest areas. And we're not talking about like coyotes or bobcats. We're talking about tigers.
Right. Biggest cat in the world.
Yeah. So it's not fun. It's not fun. There's a lot of incidents in India, a lot of news which is not coming out. But yeah, people's lives are changing because of tiger conservation for the good. And in the other extent of the other extreme as well. So
yeah, that is a rich topic and one we will explore at another time, I think. Yeah. Thanks, Surya, so much for doing this. Folks should go and check out Surya's books, especially if you're coming to India. Check out his photographic field guide to wildlife of central India and also the photographic field guide to wildlife of southern India. Your new book is coming out when?
Probably August, September.
Okay, so soon.
How well I do in this work table right here. But yeah, August, September is what I'm thinking. Let's see.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Yeah. Thanks very much, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Surya, Molly, and me, and Alvaro will be back again soon. Cheers, everybody.
See ya.
See you. Bye-bye.